The space around the small blue planet shimmered like water. A massive ship appeared from nowhere, its silver hull catching the light from the yellow star. Captain Velthara stood on the bridge of the Eternal Harmony, watching the third planet grow larger on her screens. "Another primitive world," she said to her crew. "Our scans show they just discovered fire a few thousand years ago. This should be simple." Her science officer Zekai nodded as he read his instruments. "Basic radio signals, Captain. Nothing complex. They probably think they are alone in the universe." Velthara smiled. She had done this many times before. Find a young species, make contact, guide them into the Galactic Council. It was always the same pattern. The young ones were so excited to learn they were not alone. Far below on the blue planet, Commander Taman sat in his chair aboard the orbital station New Sol. The station hung in space like a crystal flower, invisible to most sensors. His tactical officer Bora looked up from her console. "Unknown ship just appeared, sir," Bora said. Her voice was calm. "Large vessel, showing standard first contact approach patterns." Taman rubbed his chin. He had been expecting this. The young species in this sector were just now reaching out to the stars. It was time for another meeting. "Analysis?" he asked. "Hegemony design," said Wu Jin from the communication station. "Probably a survey ship. They think we are primitives." Taman almost smiled. The hegemony was barely 50,000 years old, young and eager like children playing with new toys. They meant well, but they knew so little. On the alien ship, Dr. Haijin ran her scans of the planet below. Something felt wrong. The moon was too perfect, too round. Her instruments showed strange readings from its surface. "Captain," she called out, "I am getting unusual readings from the satellite." "The moon?" Velthara walked over to look at the data. "What kind of readings?" "Artificial structures, very old. But that cannot be right. The scans say they are millions of years old." "That is impossible." Velthara frowned. Young species did not build things on their moons. And they certainly did not build things millions of years ago. "Run the scan again," she ordered. "There must be an error." Back on the human station, Taman watched the alien ship with patient eyes. The aliens were scanning everything, trying to understand what they were seeing. It was always amusing to watch young species discover things that confuse them. "Should we contact them, sir?" asked Bora. "Let them make the first move," Taman said. "They need to feel important." The alien ship began broadcasting toward Earth. Simple mathematical sequences, basic physics concepts. The kind of things that young species used to show they were intelligent. Wu Jin listened to the signals and shook his head. "Prime numbers, sir. Very basic. They are trying to prove they are smart." "How sweet," said Bora. "Should we respond with the same level?" Taman thought for a moment. The aliens were using an old encryption method, very old. Humanity had stopped using it 3,000 years ago. It was like watching children play with stone tools. "No," he said finally. "Let us give them something to think about." Taman nodded to Wu Jin, who began transmitting. But instead of simple math, the human response was different. Complex patterns that bent space and time. Gravitational waves that painted pictures in the fabric of reality itself. On the alien ship, the communications officer stared at his screen in shock. "Captain, you need to see this!" Velthara rushed over. The response from the planet was not what she expected. It was not simple math or basic physics. It was art made from gravity itself. Beautiful, complex, and far beyond what a primitive species should know. "That is impossible," she whispered. "They should not know how to do this." Dr. Haijin looked up from her moon scans. Her face was pale. "Captain, I have run the scans 5 times. The structures on the moon are definitely artificial, and they are definitely millions of years old." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant, but no one wanted to say it. If the structures were that old, then this species was not primitive at all. Velthara sat down slowly. In all her years of first contact, she had never seen anything like this. Young species built huts and farms. They did not build things on moons. They did not speak in gravitational poetry. "Open a channel," she said quietly. "Let us see who we are really dealing with." On the human station, Taman smiled as the alien ship turned toward them. The young ones were starting to understand that something was not right. Good. It was time to have a proper conversation. "Incoming transmission." "Sir?" said Wu Jin. "Put it on screen." The alien captain appeared on the main display. She looked nervous, confused. Taemin had seen that expression many times before. It was the look of someone whose entire understanding of the universe had just been shaken. "This is Captain Velthara of the Galactic Council ship Eternal Harmony," the alien said. "We come in peace to make contact with your species." Taemin stood up slowly. He was tall and moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen empires rise and fall. Behind him, Bora and Wu Jin waited at their stations. "Welcome to Earth System, Captain Velthara," Taemin said. His voice was warm but carried something deeper. Something that spoke of vast experience and patience beyond measure. "We have been waiting for you," the alien captain blinked. "Waiting for us?" "Of course," Taemin said simply. "We have been watching your people grow for quite some time. You have done well. Your council shows great promise." On the alien bridge, everyone stared at the screen. The human spoke their language perfectly. More than perfectly. He spoke with the accent of the core worlds, the ancient places where galactic civilization began. Dr. Hyojin whispered something to her captain. Something about the moon structures being older than their oldest records. Something about impossible technologies hidden in plain sight. Velthara looked at the human commander again. He stood there calmly, as if meeting alien species was something he did every day. As if he had been doing it for a very long time. "How long have you been watching us?" she asked. Taemin smiled. It was a sad smile, full of memory and gentle wisdom. "Long enough," he said. The shuttle landed softly in what looked like a simple field. Captain Velthara and her team stepped out onto Earth's surface for the first time. The air was clean and sweet, filled with the sounds of birds singing. Everything looked normal, peaceful like any other garden world. But Dr. Hyojin's instruments told a different story. The ground beneath their feet was not natural soil. It was something else, something that her scanners could not identify. The grass was too perfect, too green. Even the rocks seemed to be placed exactly where they should be. "Welcome to Earth," said a calm voice behind them. They turned to see a human walking toward them. He was middle-aged, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He wore simple clothes that looked handmade, but Hyojin's scanners detected materials that should not exist. "I am Director Namsu," the human said. "We are honored by your visit." Velthara studied him carefully. He looked ordinary, but there was something in his eyes. Something ancient and patient, like looking into deep water. "Director Namsu," she said. "We come representing the Galactic Council. We offer friendship and membership in our community of worlds." Namsu nodded politely. "How kind of you. Please follow me. We have prepared a place for you to rest." As they walked, Lieutenant Yunji joined them. She was young and cheerful, chatting easily with the alien visitors. But Velthara noticed something strange. When Yunji spoke, she used words from a dozen different galactic languages. Not just the trade tongue that most species learned, but deep old words that only scholars knew. "How many languages do you speak?" Velthara asked her. Yunji looked surprised by the question. "Oh, just the common ones. Maybe 12 or 15 of the current languages. The old tongues are much more interesting, though." Dr. Hyojin nearly dropped her scanner. 12 languages was impressive for a galactic diplomat. 15 was extraordinary. But Yunji had said it like it was nothing special. The building they entered looked like it grew from the Earth itself. The walls were smooth and warm to the touch. There were no visible power sources. No technology that the aliens could recognize. Yet everything worked perfectly. "Your architecture is unusual," said Science Officer Zekai. Namsu looked around as if seeing the building for the first time. "Is it? We try to keep things simple, though I suppose we have been making some improvements lately." "Improvements?" Velthara asked. "Oh yes," Namsu said casually. "We finished renovating the lunar facilities last century. And the deep ocean cities needed updating. You know how it is with old buildings." The aliens exchanged glances. Lunar facilities? Ocean cities? These were not things that primitive species built. Dr. Hyojin pulled out her scanner and tried to take readings of the building. The results made no sense. According to her instruments, the walls were older than the Galactic Council itself, but they looked brand new. "Director Namsu," she said carefully. "How old is this building?" Namsu thought for a moment. "This one? Not very old. We built it recently. Maybe 8,000 years ago. The original structures are much deeper underground." 8,000 years was recent. Hyojin felt dizzy. The Galactic Council was only 50,000 years old. Most member species had barely reached the stars in that time. They were led to a comfortable room with large windows that looked out over a beautiful landscape. Mountains rose in the distance, covered with forests that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. "Please rest here," said Yunji. "Dr. Kyung-ho will visit you later. He is excited to show you our nature preserves." After the humans left, the aliens huddled together. "Something is very wrong here," whispered Velthara. "These people are not primitives. The moon structures are definitely artificial," Hyejin said. "And old. Older than anything in our records." "The way they speak," added Zekai. "They know things they should not know. Languages, technologies, concepts that young species never discover." A soft knock interrupted them. Dr. Kyung-ho entered with a warm smile. He was older than the others, with gray hair and hands that looked like they had worked with growing things for many years. "I hope you are comfortable," he said. "Would you like to see our gardens?" The nature preserve was unlike anything they had ever seen. Plants from 1,000 different worlds grew together in perfect harmony. Animals that should have been extinct played in the meadows. Everything was healthy, vibrant, and impossible. "How do you have so many different species?" Velthara asked. Kyung-ho knelt down to pet something that looked like a cross between a tiger and a bird. "Oh, we have been collecting them for a while. Whenever we find a world where the animals are in trouble, we bring some here to keep them safe." "Collecting them from where?" Zekai asked. "Here and there," Kyung-ho said vaguely. "Worlds that are having problems. Wars, disasters, that sort of thing. We try to save what we can." Dr. Hyejin scanned one of the plants. Her instrument went crazy. The genetic code was impossibly complex, showing signs of careful modification over millions of years. This was not natural evolution. This was engineering on a scale that the Galactic Council could barely imagine. "Dr. Kyung-ho," she said slowly, "how long have you been collecting?" The old man sat down on a fallen log and looked up at the sky. "Time moves strangely when you work with growing things. You plant seeds and wait for them to bloom. Sometimes you wait a very long time." A small creature ran up to him and climbed onto his lap. It looked like something from the hegemony homeworld, but that species had been extinct for 20,000 years. Hyejin's hands shook as she pointed her scanner at the creature. The readings confirmed her worst fears. This was indeed from the hegemony homeworld, but it was not a fossil or a clone. It was alive, healthy, and genetically pure. "Where did you get this animal?" she whispered. Kyung-ho scratched the creature behind its ears. His ancestors came from a beautiful blue world near the galactic core. Lovely people lived there. Very artistic. They had some troubles with their star, though. Solar flares, I think. We managed to save quite a few of their animals and plants before the end. The hegemony homeworld had been destroyed by solar flares, but that was ancient history. Something that happened before the Galactic Council existed. Yet this human spoke about it like he remembered it personally. As they walked back toward the building, Yunji met them on the path. She was carrying a small device that projected a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. "Oh good, you found them," she said to Kyung-ho. "Namsu wants to show our guests the cultural center tomorrow." Velthara stared at the galactic map. It showed star positions, trade routes, and political boundaries. But it was wrong. The stars were in the wrong places. The empires were labeled incorrectly. "Your map has errors," she said. Yunji looked at the projection and laughed. "Oh, this is an old one. From maybe 50,000 years ago. I should update it." She touched the device and the map changed. Stars moved to their correct positions. Old empires faded away and new ones appeared. The Galactic Council territories grew from nothing to cover half the galaxy. "Better?" Yunji asked. The aliens stared in shock. The device had just shown them the political history of the galaxy over 50,000 years. Civilizations rising and falling like waves on a shore, and these humans had maps of all of it. That night, in their guest quarters, the aliens could not sleep. Outside their windows, they could see lights moving in the sky. Not stars, but something else. Ships, perhaps, or structures so large they blocked out the stars themselves. "We need to call for backup," whispered Velthara. "What would we tell them?" Zekai asked. "That we found a species that collects extinct animals and has historical maps going back millions of years?" Dr. Hyejin was still running scans on samples from the nature preserve. Every test gave impossible results. Genetic markers from extinct worlds, technologies that should not exist, and ages that made her instruments scream with confusion. "These are not primitives," she said quietly. "I think I think we are the primitives here. In the distance, something that might have been music drifted on the night air, but it was not made by instruments they recognized. It sounded like the singing of stars themselves or the whisper of gravity through space. Tomorrow they would visit the cultural center. Tonight they lay awake wondering what other impossible things they would discover about the species they had come to guide into the galactic community, a species that already seemed to know more about the galaxy than the galaxy knew about itself. The mountain looked ordinary from the outside, just another peak covered in green forests and morning mist. But as their transport approached, Captain Velthara saw that the entire mountain was hollow. Vast halls stretched deep into the rock, lit by a soft glow that seemed to come from the walls themselves. "Welcome to our cultural center," said historian Ji Woo as she led them through corridors that felt older than worlds. She was a small woman with bright eyes and a voice that carried easily through the vast spaces. "How long did it take to build this?" asked Science Officer Zekhai. Ji Woo paused to think. "Oh, not too long. We finished the basic structure a few cycles ago. Maybe 2 million years? The decorative work took longer, of course." Dr. Hyojin stopped walking. 2 million years ago, most of the current galactic civilizations had not even evolved yet. The hegemony had been simple creatures living in caves. 2 million years is not a long time, she asked weakly. "Well," Ji Woo said with a gentle smile, "time feels different when you are working on something you really care about. We wanted to get it right." The walls around them were covered in what looked like art, but as they walked closer, Hyejin realized the images were moving. They showed scenes of space, of planets and stars, of creatures she had never seen before. "What are these pictures?" Velthara asked. "Oh, just some old memories," Ji Woo said. "We like to remember the places we have been and the people we have met." One image showed a massive space battle. Ships that looked familiar fought against others that Hyojin did not recognize. The familiar ships belonged to the Consortium, one of the oldest known civilizations. "This shows the Third Consortium War," she said. "But that happened 300,000 years ago." "How do you have pictures of it?" Ji Woo looked at the image with sad eyes. "Yes, that was a difficult time. So much anger, so much fear. We tried to help them find peace, but sometimes the young ones have to learn things the hard way." "You were there?" Zekhai asked in shock. "Not me personally," Ji Woo said. "But some of our people were nearby. We always try to be nearby when things get difficult." They entered a vast library where walls stretched up higher than they could see. Books, data crystals, and devices they could not name filled shelves that seemed to go on forever. But the strangest thing was the silence. In such a huge space, they should have heard echoes of their footsteps. Instead, the quiet was perfect and complete. "This is where we keep our recent history," Ji Woo said. "Recent?" Velthara asked. "The last billion years or so. The older records are deeper down." Hyojin's legs felt weak. A billion years of history was recent to these people. What did they consider old? Ji Woo led them to a reading area where comfortable chairs surrounded a strange device. It looked like a sphere made of light floating above a simple table. "Would you like to see something interesting?" she asked. Without waiting for an answer, she touched the sphere. The room around them vanished. Suddenly, they were floating in space, watching the galaxy spin slowly below them. Stars were different colors in different places. The spiral arms had a different shape. "This is our galaxy as it was 500 million years ago," Ji Woo said calmly. "See that cluster of blue stars near the core? The Velthani Empire lived there. Beautiful people, very artistic. They loved music that could make flowers grow." Velthara gasped. Her own species was named after the Velthani. They were legendary figures from the oldest myths, beings of pure light who had created the first songs. "The Velthani were real?" she whispered. "Oh yes," Ji Woo said fondly. "Wonderful musicians. We still have some of their instruments. Would you like to hear their morning song?" Before anyone could answer, music filled the air around them. It was unlike anything they had ever heard. Notes that seemed to be made of starlight itself, melodies that made their hearts ache with beauty and loss. "They taught us many things," Ji Woo continued as the music played. "Patience, mostly. How to wait for the right moment to help. How to guide without controlling." The galaxy spun faster around them. Stars moved like fireflies. Civilizations rose and fell like waves. The aliens watched empire after empire appear, flourish and fade away. Some names they recognized from the oldest historical records. Others were completely unknown. "Every one of them was precious," Ji Woo said softly. Every species that reached for the stars brought something new and wonderful to the universe. We have tried to preserve what we could. Preserve? Zekai asked. Their art, their music, their stories. The things that made them special. When a civilization ends, those are the parts that matter most. The vision changed again. Now they saw worlds being born, stars igniting for the first time, galaxies forming from clouds of gas and dust. But in the background, barely visible, were structures that did not belong. Vast constructions that moved between the stars like ships. What are those? Haijin pointed at the structures. Early colonies, Jiwoo said simply, from when we were still learning how to travel between stars. We have improved our methods since then. Captain Velthara felt like the universe was spinning around her. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. Her people were not explorers discovering new worlds. They were children playing in a garden that someone else had planted. How long have humans been traveling in space? She asked. Jiwoo looked thoughtful. When did we first leave Earth? That was quite a while ago. Before the galaxy had its current shape, certainly. We were younger then, more curious about what was out there. The vision showed the galaxy getting older, more familiar. Stars moved to positions that Velthara recognized. The spiral arms took their modern form. And still in every image there were signs of human presence. Subtle structures, gentle influences, quiet guidance. You have been watching us since before we existed, Velthara said. It was not a question. Watching, helping when we could, Jiwoo agreed. Your people have such beautiful ships. We especially love the way you sing during long journeys. It reminds us of the Velthani. You know about our journey songs? We know about many things, Jiwoo said gently. When you care about someone, you pay attention to the things that make them happy. The sphere went dark and the library returned around them. But now it felt different. The books and crystals were not just records. They were memories of friends kept safe by someone who had loved them. Director Namsu appeared beside them, moving so quietly that none of them had heard him approach. I hope our archives are interesting, he said to Captain Velthara. Director Namsu, she said, her voice tight with emotion. We need to talk. My people, my government, they need to know what we have found here. Namsu nodded seriously. Of course. That is why we arranged this meeting. It is time for certain truths to be shared. How long have you known about us? About our council, our ship, our mission? Namsu looked at Jiwoo, who smiled sadly. We have known about your ship since it left your home system, he said. We have known about your council since before it was formed. We have known about your people since their first words were spoken. That is impossible, Zekai protested. Our home system is hundreds of light years away. Distance means different things when you have been traveling for a long time, Namsu said. And when you have friends everywhere. Dr. Hyejin finally found her voice. What are you? What are humans really? Namsu and Jiwoo exchanged a look. It was the look of people who had carried a heavy secret for far too long. We are gardeners, Namsu said simply. We plant seeds and tend growing things. We watch over the young ones until they are ready to stand on their own. And are we ready? Velthara asked. That, said Jiwoo with a smile that held the weight of ages, is what we are here to find out. The room was small and simple, with walls of warm wood and soft lighting that seemed to come from nowhere. Philosopher Dong Hyun sat across from the alien visitors, his weathered hands folded in his lap. He looked older than the other humans, with silver hair and eyes that held depths like ancient oceans. You want to understand what we really are, he said quietly. That is a good question. We have been asking it ourselves for a very long time. Captain Velthara leaned forward. Our people need answers. We came here thinking we were the teachers. Now we discover that we are the students. How do we explain this to our council? Dong-hyun smiled, but it was not a happy expression. Every species asks the same question when they reach this point. How do we tell our people that they are not as important as they thought? Are we important? Asked Science Officer Zekai. You are the most important thing in the universe, Dong-hyun said simply. Every species is. Every individual is. That is why we do what we do. Dr. Heejin pulled out her scanner and set it on the table between them. I have been taking readings since we arrived. Nothing makes sense. Your technology is beyond anything we know. Your buildings are older than our oldest records. Your people speak as if they remember events from millions of years ago. What are you? Dong-hyun was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made the air in the room feel heavy. We are the ones who stay behind, he said. When others move on to higher things, we remain. When civilizations grow beyond the need for physical existence, we keep watching over those who are still learning. Higher things? Velthara asked. There are places beyond the physical universe, Donghyun explained. Dimensions where consciousness can exist without bodies, without planets, without the limits of space and time. Many species eventually discover these places. When they do, they face a choice. He gestured to the walls around them. They can transcend, moving beyond matter and energy to explore infinite possibilities. Or they can stay behind to help others make the same journey. And humans chose to stay? Some of us did. Others moved on long ago. Those of us who remained became the shepherds, the gardeners, the quiet ones. We guide young civilizations away from the mistakes that could destroy them. We nudge them toward discoveries that will help them grow. Dr. Minji entered the room carrying a tray of simple tea. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but when she looked at the aliens, they felt as if she could see into their very souls. I study how different species think, she said as she poured the tea. Every civilization develops differently. Some are logical, some are emotional, some are artistic. But they all face the same challenges. What challenges? Sekhai asked. Learning to work together instead of fighting. Understanding that there is enough for everyone. Realizing that differences make them stronger, not weaker. Growing beyond the fear that makes them want to destroy what they do not understand. Minji sat down and looked directly at Captain Velthara. Your people are facing one of those challenges right now. You discovered that you are not the oldest or the most advanced species in the galaxy. How will you react to this knowledge? Velthara felt uncomfortable under that gentle gaze. Some will be angry. Some will be afraid. Some will want to hide this information. And some will be excited to learn new things, Minji said. The question is which group will be stronger? Donghyun sipped his tea slowly. We have watched this moment happen thousands of times. Species discovering that they are not alone, not unique, not the center of the universe. Some grow from the experience. Others are broken by it. What happens to the ones that are broken? Heejin asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know. The room fell silent. Finally, Minji spoke. We try to save what we can. Their art, their music, their stories, the things that made them beautiful and unique. But civilizations that cannot accept their place in the larger universe often destroy themselves. Have you watched many civilizations die? Velthara asked. Too many, Donghyun said softly. Each one is like losing a child. We remember their first words, their first steps into space, their first discoveries, and then we watch them make choices that lead to their end. Research director Hye-won joined them, carrying a device that looked like a crystal flower. Her face was sad in a way that made the aliens want to comfort her. Would you like to see the quiet archive? She asked. It might help you understand what we do. Before anyone could object, the crystal flower began to glow. The room around them faded, replaced by a vast space filled with floating spheres of light. Each sphere pulsed with different colors, different rhythms. Each light represents a civilization that we tried to help, Hye-won explained. The bright ones succeeded. They learned to work together, to explore peacefully, to grow beyond their fears. Many of them eventually transcended to higher dimensions. And the dim ones? Sekhai asked, though he already knew the answer. Those are the failures, Hye-won said. Species that destroyed themselves despite our guidance. Wars, environmental collapse, hatred stronger than wisdom. We could not save them. The aliens stared at the countless lights floating around them. There were thousands of bright spheres, but there were far more dim ones. So many that they seemed to fill the entire space like dying stars. So many failures, Velthara whispered. Each one taught us something, Donghyun said. Made us better at helping the next species. But the pain never gets easier. How do you bear it? Minji asked gently. Watching civilizations you care about make choices that lead to their destruction? Hye-won touched one of the dim spheres. It flared briefly, showing images of a beautiful world covered in crystal cities. Then it faded back to almost nothing. We bear it because the alternative is worse, she said. If we stopped trying, if we gave up and transcended to higher dimensions, who would help the young ones? Who would guide them away from the paths that lead to darkness? But it hurts you, Hyejin said. She was beginning to understand the sadness she had seen in every human's eyes since they arrived. Yes, Hye-won admitted. It hurts. But love always hurts. When you care about someone, you feel their pain as well as their joy. And we care about every species that reaches for the stars. The vision faded and they were back in the simple room. But now the aliens looked at their human hosts with new eyes. These were not conquerors or manipulators. They were parents watching over children who did not even know they existed. What about the species that succeed? Velthara asked. What happens to them? They grow, Donghyun said with genuine happiness. They explore, they create, they discover wonders we never imagined. Some eventually choose to transcend. Others stay in the physical universe and become guides themselves. The cycle continues, and they never know about you? Usually not. Knowing too early can be harmful. Young species need to believe in their own strength, their own discoveries. If they learn they are being guided, some become dependent. Others become rebellious. Both reactions can lead to disaster. Minji leaned forward. But your people are different. You have reached a level of maturity where the truth can be shared. That is why this meeting was arranged. Arranged? Velthara felt a chill. You mean our mission was not our idea? The desire to explore was yours, Donghyun assured her. The courage to make contact was yours. But the timing, the location, the opportunity, those may have been gently influenced. Haewon smiled at their shocked expressions. Do not feel manipulated. Everything important about this mission came from your own hearts and minds. We just made sure you found us when you were ready. Ready for what? Zerkai asked. To make the same choice that every mature civilization must make, Donghyun said. Whether to join the gardeners, or to follow your own path to transcendence. The weight of that choice settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Outside, the alien visitors could hear the sounds of Earth continuing its quiet existence. Birds singing, wind in the trees, the distant laughter of children. It was the sound of a world that had chosen to stay behind, to keep watching over the young ones who still needed guidance. The sound of love that had lasted for geological ages. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen anything like this. Representatives from every member species filled the massive space, their voices rising in confused debate. Captain Velthara stood at the center podium, trying to explain what she had discovered on Earth. You are telling us that humans are millions of years old? Demanded Council Speaker Thexavel. That they have been watching us since before our civilizations existed? That is exactly what I am telling you, Velthara said. Her voice was steady, but her hand shook slightly. Everything we thought we knew about galactic history is wrong. Representative Quindar of the Trade Guild stood up. This is impossible. Our archaeological records show no evidence of such an ancient civilization. Because they hid it, Velthara replied. Because they wanted us to develop naturally without knowing we were being guided. The hall erupted in angry voices. Some demanded proof. Others called for military action. A few suggested that Captain Velthara had been somehow deceived or controlled by human technology. Dr. Hyejin stepped forward with her scanner data. I have evidence, she said loudly. The hall quieted to hear her. Genetic samples from Earth show engineering dating back millions of years. Artificial structures on their moon that predate our oldest records. Technologies that should not exist. If they are so advanced, called out someone from the back, why reveal themselves now? Why not stay hidden forever? Before Velthara could answer, the air in the center of the hall began to shimmer. A figure materialized there, appearing as if walking out of invisible doorway. It was Council Representative Jin'ei, though none of them had ever seen her before. She looked human, but there was something in her bearing that made the vast hall feel small. When she spoke, her voice carried easily to every corner without amplification. Because, Jin'ei said simply, it is time. The hall fell completely silent. Jin'ei walked slowly to the podium, her footsteps echoing in the stillness. Honored representatives, she said, I bring greetings from the Terran Diplomatic Corps. We apologize for the deception, but it was necessary for your growth. Deception? Speaker Thexavel's voice cracked with emotion. You have been lying to us for millions of years? Not lying, Jin'ei corrected gently. Simply allowing you to believe what you needed to believe. Every species requires the confidence that comes from thinking they are discovering things for themselves. She gestured to the assembled representatives. Look around this hall. 43 different species working together despite their differences. Building trade networks, sharing knowledge, exploring the galaxy in peace. Do you think this happened by accident? Representative Morgeth of the warrior clan stood up angrily. Are you saying we are not capable of peace without your interference? I am saying you are capable of incredible things, Jin'ei replied. But young civilizations sometimes need gentle guidance to avoid the mistakes that could destroy them. What mistakes? demanded Quindar. Ginny's expression became sad. Wars that sterilize entire star systems, technologies that tear holes in spacetime, prejudices that lead to genocide, fear that turns neighbors into enemies. She touched a device on her wrist and holographic images filled the air above the assembly, worlds reduced to ash, space battles that left entire regions uninhabitable, species that had destroyed themselves through hatred and fear. These are civilizations that did not survive their adolescence, Jin'ei said quietly. Peoples we tried to help but who chose destruction over growth. The hall was silent as the representatives stared at the images of dead, worlds and extinct species. But you also chose to reveal yourselves to us, said Speaker Thexaval. Why now? Because you have reached the point where you can handle the truth, Jin'ei said. Your council has prevented 3 major wars in the last century. You have shared life-saving technologies freely among member species. You have begun to think of yourselves not as separate peoples, but as part of something larger. Admiral Sung Ho materialized beside Jin'ei, his appearance causing another stir in the assembly. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had commanded fleets among the stars for longer than most civilizations had existed. We want to offer you a choice, he said. The same choice we have offered to every species that reaches this level of maturity. What choice? Velthara asked. Jin'ei looked directly at her. Whether we return to the shadows, erasing all memory of this contact, allowing you to continue believing you are masters of your own destiny, or whether for the first time in galactic history, we step forward as active participants rather than hidden guardians. What would that mean? Asked Representative Ketheron of the Science Guilds. Admiral Sung Ho smiled. It would mean sharing technologies that could transform your civilizations overnight. Knowledge that could prevent suffering, cure diseases, extend life, and open doorways to parts of the universe you have never imagined. But it would also mean accepting that you are not the oldest or most advanced species, Jin'ei added. Some of your people will struggle with this knowledge. The assembly erupted again in heated debate. Some representatives were excited by the possibilities. Others were angry at being deceived. Many were simply afraid of what this revelation would mean for their peoples. Elder Council member Ye Jin appeared at the podium, her presence somehow calming the chaos. She was ancient even by human standards, with eyes that seemed to hold the memory of stars being born. Before you decide, she said, and her voice commanded absolute attention, you should know the rest of the truth. The hall became so quiet that the alien representatives could hear their own hearts beating. Humanity was not the first, Ye Jin said. Long ago, when our species was young and violent, we were visited by beings even older than we are now. They faced the same choice with us that we offer to you today. What happened to them? Speaker Thexval asked in a whisper. They transcended, Ye Jin said simply. They moved beyond the physical universe to explore dimensions where consciousness can exist without form or limit. Before they left, they asked us the same question we now ask you, which was, whether to join them in transcendence or remain behind to guide the next generation of consciousness that would arise in the galaxy. The weight of that revelation settled over the assembly like a blanket of stars. These humans, these ancient guardians, had been offered paradise and chosen duty instead. We chose to stay, Ye Jin continued, to be teachers, protectors, gardeners of growing minds. It has been a long and sometimes painful responsibility. We have watched civilizations we loved destroy themselves. We have celebrated species that grew beyond our dreams. We have been proud parents and grieving mourners for geological ages. And now? Asked Velthara. Now the cycle continues, Jin'ei said. As you reach maturity, you face the same choice. Accept the burden and joy of guiding younger species, or explore the infinite possibilities that lie beyond physical existence. Admiral Sung Ho gestured to the assembled representatives. But that choice is far in your future. Today, you only need to decide whether you want to know the truth about your place in the universe, or return to the comfortable belief that you discovered everything yourselves. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some species voted immediately for revelation, others demanded time to consult with their home governments. A few argued for maintaining the illusion of independence. Finally, Speaker Thexaval called for order. We need to vote, he said. All in favor of accepting humanity's offer of partnership and revealed truth? Hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages rose throughout the hall. The count was not unanimous, but it was overwhelming. The motion passes, Thexval announced. We choose truth over comfortable lies. Ginny smiled, and for the first time since her arrival, she looked genuinely happy. Then welcome, young cousins, to the greater community of consciousness. Your real education begins now. Outside the Great Hall, the stars continued their ancient dance across the galaxy. But for the first time in millions of years, humanity was no longer alone in their vigil. The young ones were ready to learn, ready to grow, ready to eventually face their own choice between transcendence and service. The cycle of mentorship that stretched across the cosmos had gained new participants. And somewhere in dimensions beyond space and time, the ancient teachers who had once guided humanity watched with approval as their students became teachers in turn. The universe was vast and full of growing minds. There would always be work for those who chose to stay behind and tend the garden of consciousness among the stars.